Coming up on Talking Points, a blue wave sweeps the nation. Hear which Democrats are celebrating after election night.
Plus, President Donald Trump's cuts to SNAP benefits are blocked by the Supreme Court as the government shutdown inches slowly towards possibly an end.
As much as in any way to make sure that everybody can grow up knowing that they have the right to marry the person they love.
And the Supreme Court refuses to hear an argument against gay marriage. Hear our interview with the lead plaintiff of landmark marriage equality case Obergefell v. Hodges. All that and more when Talking Points starts right now. Blue wave swept over the nation last week as Democrats won big coast to coast. Welcome into Talking Points. I'm Ben Bascuk.
And I'm Alex Burstein. We start tonight with last Tuesday's elections. Talking Points analyst Danielle Blynn is here with more on how Onondaga County felt that blue wave. Danielle, where did Democrats see wins?
Well, all across the board, Alex, Democrats in central New York rode the blue wave right along with races in Virginia, New Jersey, New York, and more. The Onondaga County legislature may see major changes come 2026. Democrats gained 6 seats on Republicans in this election out of 6 contested races. The Democrats won them all, flipping the legislature blue for the first time in over 50 years. Democrats took away the Republican supermajority and now hold the legislature at 10 seats to 7. All 7 seats the Republicans held on to, uncontested in this year's election. One of the tightest races and a major shock came in District 6, where challenger Gregory Erickson beat incumbent Julie Abbott by just under 4 points. Other major wins came in Districts 8 and 10. The 8th District flipped back blue with a win by challenger Chad Ryan, and the 3-way race for the 9th District ended up with Working Families Party candidate Nicole Watts on top. Outside of the county legislature, local races for town supervisors in Cicero, DeWitt, and Manlius all saw Democrats take home the win. A lone bright spot for Republicans in contested races this cycle was John Mahar's win over Khalid Bey for the town of Onondaga supervisor. Lastly, Sharon Owens is officially the mayor-elect of Syracuse. Though less of a shock to many, Owens easily won Tuesday's election, beating out challengers Thomas Babylon, Timothy Rudd, and Alfonso Davis. Owens beat her next closest competitor, Babylon, by over 50 points.
Because I got a call at like 3:30 from Kamala Harris.
Really?
No, I sure did. I sure did. It said private, and I was like, okay, who is this? I said, hello, this is Sharon. And I heard that voice.
Wow.
This is Kamala Harris.
Democrats winning big locally and on the national stage, winning both gubernatorial races in New Jersey and Virginia. Joining us at the wall to dive deeper into what those results mean is Talking Points analyst Matyasik.
Thanks, Ben. We're back at the map for the second week in a row, this time with New Jersey and Virginia's gubernatorial races, which bigger wins for Democrats this year than it was 4 years ago, especially in Virginia, where they actually flipped the governor's mansion race there. First, let's take a look at New Jersey, where Mikey Sherrill beat Jack Ciattarelli. He came back to try and run again after he ran in 2021. This time, Mikey Sherrill beat him 56-42. Now, let's just take a look at the countywide race between 2025 and 2024. We look down here in Cumberland County, Atlantic County, and Gloucester County down in the south end of Jersey there. Now let's look at the 2024 presidential results. All these counties were red for Donald Trump. Kamala Harris only won by around 6% of the vote, and a lot more voters turning out here in the Newark area and the Trenton area for Mikey Sherrill in her race than did for Kamala Harris back in 2024. Now we go over to Virginia, where this year Abigail Spanberger, a former congresswoman from up in Northern Virginia, beat Winsome Earl-Sears, the current lieutenant governor, 57% of the vote. This one was not expected to be a big one for the Republicans. Winsome Earl-Sears was not considered the best candidate they could have been putting forward. But let's take a look at 2021, where Glenn Youngkin beat Terry McAuliffe, the former Democratic governor, over in Virginia, 50.6% to 48.7%. That's about a 10-point flip for the Democrats in Virginia. Now, talking about Winsome Earl-Sears a little bit more, she is currently the lieutenant governor of Virginia, but she didn't go without a few mishaps on the campaign, things that she said, especially with things like abortion and whatnot, and just a few little mishaps, I guess.
A lot of those discussions happening on the national level, but also here on the local level. Let's start there with you, Danielle. Republicans convened after this most recent election and kind of agreed to point the blame at one person, being Donald Trump. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I think a lot of them came out on election night and said, we don't know what happened, we're going to look more into it. And then they met with County Supervisor McMahon afterwards, and they kind of all said, well, Trump's not on the ballot, so we lost, which I think is a sentiment we heard nationally as well. We saw a lot of them say, oh, Trump's not on the ballot, oh, we're going to do better in the midterms, but Trump's not on the ballot in the midterms either. And I think an important thing to note here is most of this legislature is operating as if this is going to be a one-year term for them. They think they're going to have to run again in 2026 if Governor Kathy Hochul signs legislation on her desk that would move everything to even-year elections here in New York State. If that happens, they all do have to run again in 2026. So is that going to benefit the Republicans? Typically no, but they all think if they run again in the midterms, they're going to gain a lot of these seats back and get back that supermajority they lost.
And then for the Democrats, you obviously have this kind of newfound freedom, especially in the legislature, having this lead for the first time in 50 years. But what actually could be done with these new seats? What could Democrats possibly change and maybe see happen in these next few months?
Yeah, I think the thing is they don't know. They've said and they've come out. They also had a meeting after the election and kind of were like, oh, we don't really know what's going to happen. I mean, they've gained 6 seats. They now have, like I mentioned, a majority for the first time in 50 years. That's a long time. Some of these legislators weren't alive the last time that the Democrats had a win here in the county legislature. And I think Mo Brown, who was in an uncontested race and kept his seat in his county kind of going towards that majority seat, said that we're going to see that Democrats are naive, that they don't know how to run this thing. I think some things I saw, they want to talk about that aquarium. They really don't want that aquarium around anymore. They want to focus on more affordable housing and things like that. But I think it's going to be interesting to see how they do play this, because I don't think a lot of them really know quite yet how it's going to go now that they have this majority and this new power that they haven't seen before, especially also with Owens now at the mayor's seat.
And Drew, kind of looking at the now national scale of this, last year after the presidential election, it was kind of Democrats saying, where do we go from here? Now it's the Republicans saying, we're a year from midterms, what's going to happen? Was this more of a platform issue, a candidate issue? Where did Republicans go wrong across the board?
Well, firstly, I think it was Democratic turnout being stronger than Republican turnout that really did a number on Republicans this year. When you take a look at it, you see the No Kings protest. Democrats were energized. We saw this not only in Virginia and New Jersey, but across the country. I mean, specifically even here in central New York, Trump not being on the ballot was almost a big weighing down, because this was the first time Democrats could make their voices known after the mishaps of the 2024 election. I think that it was really, truly just Democrats being more energized than Republicans. Republicans thinking they had a lot of these races in the bag when they really didn't. Democrats were here to show that even though Trump is not on the ballot, they still want to vote Democrat up and down to hear their voices heard.
And kind of a theme we've seen over the past couple of years is when you have a Republican in the presidency, you see a big turnout for Democrats when it comes to midterm elections. But this, it seems like, is more than that. Is this momentum something that they can keep going into the future?
Well, they certainly hope so. And I'll tell you this, we're going to know much more about it in the coming weeks. We talked earlier about the shutdown ending, the ACA tax credits. A lot of Republicans, especially in the House, have said that they are nervous if this shutdown ends and, they kick the rock down the road till December with these Affordable Care Act tax credit, or the credits here. They're afraid that if they can't get this passed in December, Democrats are going to make such a big mess of this that the midterms could be even worse for them. Just, again, Democrats being more energized to get out to vote than Republicans in these key races, that they could flip the House and potentially even the Senate. There's a lot of Senate seats they could get.
And then, Drew and Danielle, we see kind of the Democrats ran very different type of candidates. In New York City, you have Zohran Mamdani, very far left. But these governorships, they're a lot more moderate, left-center. Does the Democrat Party know what type of candidate they want to run, or was this kind of like playing the field, seeing what works?
I think it's playing the field. I think we saw a lot more moderate candidates here in Onondaga County as well. This legislature, yes, it's blue, but I think a lot of these new legislatures are not actually as blue as some people think they are, and I think some of the Republicans in the county think they are. But I think in New York, you really needed that change. That city is much more blue than a lot of places around the country. So I think you had to see more of that push, and that's what really won there. But I don't know if they really know what the perfect candidate is, especially when you look towards the midterms and the presidency moving forward. I don't know if they know yet whether they should. I think a lot of people think they should lean more towards this left center, but I think a lot of people are still kind of also pushing towards more of the Mamdani route there.
Yeah, definitely people moderating here in central New York, but kind of keeping their distance from Trump on the Republican side. Thank you guys so much for joining us at the desk. Well, just ahead, staying local, our sit-down interview with Syracuse Mayor Ben Walsh as he reflects on 8 years in City Hall and what could be next. Stay with us.
Visit aarp.org/caregiving for information on how to provide even better care for the person who once took care of you.
Sat down with Syracuse Mayor Ben Walsh as he reflects on 8 years of leadership in City Hall. We covered everything from immigration to local elections and what lies in his future. Thank you so much for sitting down with us, Mayor Walsh. We really appreciate the time.
Happy to be with you.
You talk a lot about understanding the community which you serve. What's one of the biggest misunderstandings or assumptions people have about the city of Syracuse?
We're often characterized by some of our more of our challenges than the positive attributes. If you peel back a few of those layers, there's some really compelling stories. We have significant investments happening throughout the city and the community. Of course, we're on the precipice of the Micron moment, which is going to be transformational for the entire community. What I tell people is that I've been on most blocks in the city, and on virtually all of them, when you knock on doors and you talk to people, what you find is the vast majority of people are just good people trying to get by, doing their best. I think that the story of resilience, the story of renaissance that's happening here in the city are stories that aren't as often told, but are there in droves throughout the community.
You talked about kind of maximizing this moment with Micron coming in. The big debate, especially with the campaign trail, is do we invest in the people who are here currently, or do we invest in the future workforces coming in?
Well, it has to be both. But for me as a public servant, and I think for all public servants, you have to start with the community that you serve and the people that elected you into office. And when I think about Micron and what it's going to mean to this community, it's going to be significant under any scenario. But if we truly want it to be transformational, it has to benefit the people that are here today.
I want to kind of pivot here and talk about the recent election here on November 4th with Deputy Mayor Sharon Owens now stepping into the position.
Yeah.
What's kind of one thing you've worked with her closely, one thing that you'd like to see carried forward from your administration, or maybe something that you didn't quite get to that you'd like to see her accomplish in her administration?
Yeah. It's really hard to separate Mayor-elect Owens and me because we have been side by side for the past 8 years. So all of my accomplishments are her accomplishments, and so I suspect that she will evaluate city government as she goes into the transition and into her new administration. But again, I think if it ain't broke, don't fix it, and I'm pretty sure she'll subscribe to that motto as well.
What do you think is the biggest takeaway for local Republicans after this race, kind of seeing this blue wall wash over even things like the Onondaga County legislator?
Certainly, national politics influence local elections, and we saw that here. It doesn't account for everything, and I still feel like good candidates that have good plans and the resources to support their campaigns can be successful, even if it's in the face of strong national political headwinds.
Have you at any point before or during your term ever seen Syracuse as a sanctuary city as it's been called in the past?
I've always avoided using that term because I think it means different things to different people, and has had different definitions at different times. As I understand it currently right now, the federal administration has a list of sanctuary cities. Syracuse is not on it. We are a proud refugee resettlement community, and we have benefited greatly from being that. In local government, we don't do immigration enforcement. We never have, and so what I've said is that as it relates to immigration enforcement and working with federal authorities, where federal authorities are working to get dangerous criminals out of our community, we will happily work with them and support it.
I've spoken to a lot of Republicans that say some of your policies might have leaned Democrat when it came to things like property tax hikes. How do you justify something like a tax hike to your constituents when the price of living is rising?
It's necessary in order to deliver the services that those very same constituents depend on. When the federal government is shutting down, when the state is pulling back on investments, it's your local government, whether it's a city, a town, or a village, that you feel the impact of more than anything. Property taxes is the third largest source of revenue in the biggest source of revenue that we have some control over. Raising taxes is always a politically volatile issue, but if you look at it strictly from a management standpoint and what we needed in order to deliver basic services to people, again, I think what we've done over the past 8 years is reasonable.
What is, over your tenure as mayor, your most rewarding day in office?
I think about the days that stand out to me that are the most positive are days when I can look a constituent in the eye and know that my service and the work that we did benefited them. Moments involving young people when we cut the ribbon on a new playground or on new school improvements, where I can look at the kids and see the excitement in their eyes.
How do you want your legacy as mayor, your run as mayor, to be remembered in this community?
I try not to put a lot of thought towards that. It's not something that I can really control. I've tried to do it in a way that values honesty and integrity, and in a way that, again, prioritizes helping people wherever they are in life.
Mayor Walsh, I got to ask, what's next?
Still figuring it out. I will always feel the need to serve the community in some capacity. I'm considering some opportunities outside of government, but there still may be some opportunities within government at a different level of government that could be a good fit too. Certainly had conversations with the governor. I think Governor Hochul's done a great job, and if the opportunity is right, I would consider it. But I have made it clear to everyone who's asked, Syracuse is home. It's going to continue to be home. So we'll see where that takes us.
Well, I'm sure you'll have no problem going on LinkedIn and finding a job here in the next
just have
couple
to
months.
click on that open to work button.
That's all you gotta do. Put the little banner on your image
Exactly.
there. Well, we appreciate your time today, Mayor Walsh. Thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
You can find the full interview on the CitrusTV YouTube channel. After the break, the Supreme Court denying a request to revisit the 2015 landmark marriage equality case. Hear from the lead plaintiff after this quick break.
You've messed up your son's haircut.
Mom?
Do you A, try to fix it?
Like it never happened.
B, work with what you got? Or C, show solidarity?
Thank you, baby.
As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
Dad, they took over my bedroom. Come on, come on. Okay, Dad. 1, 2, 3. Dad! You saved me. Dad?
Are you okay?
I'm fine, dear.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
Welcome back to Talking Points. The Supreme Court is rejecting a long-shot bid to overturn landmark marriage equality case Obergefell v. Hodges. The court turned away an appeal by Kentucky clerk Kim Davis, who claims the 2015 decision violates her First Amendment right to free exercise of religion. Davis was sued by a gay couple after denying them a marriage license 10 days after the Obergefell decision. I sat down with the lead plaintiff, Jim Obergefell, who defended his civil right and vowed to keep fighting for equality.
Think about when you got married and you were able to say to the person you love most, "You're the person I choose, I thee wed." Think about how it felt. The way it changes the way you feel about that other person, about your relationship. Why on earth would you want to deny that right to someone else? We're not asking for your faith leader to do this. We're not asking for you to come to our wedding. We simply want to be able to exercise that same civil right that you have exercised.
In a concurrent opinion, Justice Clarence Thomas suggested the High Court reconsider a number of its decisions based on the principle of substantive due process. Despite the 6-3 conservative majority, no other justices joined Thomas this afternoon.
Well, it's not just marriage equality. The Supreme Court has a lot on its plate in addition to this ruling. Last week, justices heard arguments over President Donald Trump's authority to impose tariffs on nearly every country. The court appeared skeptical with the power President Trump is asserting without congressional authorization. 3 lower courts have concluded that most of the tariffs are illegal. The Supreme Court did hand the Trump administration a victory in another case. The court will allow all new passports to display an individual's biological sex at birth. The Biden administration had allowed people to self-select their gender on passports and added a third option, X, to the documents.
Moving to the National Cathedral, funeral details are set for former U.S. Vice President Dick Cheney following his death this past Tuesday. Cheney was considered one of the most powerful VPs in U.S. history under President George W. Bush from 2001 to 2009. Cheney was a Republican, often referred to as architect of the Iraq War. He then endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris in 2024. Cheney died from complications of pneumonia and heart disease. A funeral service will take place on November 20th. While new developments with the government shutdown, Congress is taking steps to pass legislation that would end the now 41-day pause. SNAP benefits for many Americans are paused during this time. Our analyst Emma Poper is in studio with the details. Emma?
Thanks, Ben. Last night, the Senate took steps to end the longest shutdown in history. Here's what Speaker of the House Mike Johnson had to say earlier today.
I'm thankful to welcome you to what appears to be the beginning of the end of the longest government shutdown in U.S. history, as shameful as that is.
A small amount of Senate Democrats are joining Republicans to bring an end to the government shutdown. The legislation to end the shutdown notably does not include a guarantee extension of health care subsidies.
Our position as House Democrats has been crystal clear. We will sit down with any Republicans, anytime, any place, anywhere, in order to find a bipartisan path forward, but we're not down with their my way or the highway approach to governance.
The shutdown has caused thousands of federal workers to go without pay and thousands of Americans to go without benefits, such as the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP. The Trump administration returned to the Supreme Court today to keep payments for SNAP frozen. This comes as smaller courts all over the country have ruled to have the government continue to fund SNAP. The Supreme Court is expected to have a ruling tomorrow. The president of Cafe Sequoia Kemp is working to fill the gaps that SNAP has left in the local community.
The decisions that they're making are impacting people they will never meet. You must remember that every one of us, we're not a dollar sign, we're not a statistic, we're real people with real issues, and we need our representatives to represent our best interests and not their own.
Well, Emma, thanks for joining us here at the desk. And obviously a lot of words on both sides about these SNAP benefits and who will get them and who won't. But I think for the local community and people across the country, the question is, are they going to have benefits in the coming days, or is this something likely to be prolonged?
I don't know. Unfortunately, that is the message that we're going to hear a lot today and in the future is going to be, I don't know. These lower courts are saying, yes, we want the administration to keep funding SNAP, but Trump is going to the Supreme Court and saying that we want to completely freeze SNAP for all of these lower courts as well.
Yeah, it seems like there's this big tug of war over SNAP benefits, with state and local agencies trying to award more and the federal government trying to award less. But I want to move to Congress and ask, it seems like Democrats are back to square one with this shutdown. They didn't have the ACA benefits before. They shut the government down. Now we might open the government back up with still no ACA benefits.
Yeah, we're seeing a funding of SNAP in this legislation that they're proposing, as well as the back pay for furloughed workers. But what we're missing here is very important to the reason we started this shutdown, is these healthcare subsidies. We don't know what is happening with them, and there is supposed to be a vote in December to figure that out if this legislation is passed.
There's also kind of this weird divide going on right now. You have kind of these establishment Democrats, people like Dick Durbin, who's retiring in the next year, who are saying, okay, it's time to end this shutdown. There's been enough of these furloughs. And then you have Hakeem Jeffries, the leader of the Democrats in the House, saying, not so fast. In the House, we really want to see this health care and some other things come through. Is there some new divide that's being found within Democrats that could slow this process down?
I think it's interesting to see. We have these 8 Democrats in the Senate who are saying we need to find a compromise and we need to find it now. But we're seeing these hardline Democrats who are like Hakeem Jeffries saying, no, whoa, whoa, whoa. We need to work and fight for the people here. And I think it's interesting to see, as we talked earlier in the show, come Tuesday's election, Democrats are winning big because people are denying these Trump values. And so we're going to see, interestingly enough, how people are responding to the Democrats conceding on this point.
Right, and it's interesting, again, to see those federal issues impacting local elections in offices that those individuals, like the Onondaga County Legislature, don't actually have that much control over when it comes to SNAP benefits, when it comes to immigration, and these issues that people are still voting when the way that affects the federal level.
And I mean, I think that's the huge thing for the Republicans right now, because they're taking the hit on these elections, and especially on the local level, it's not their fault, and that's a huge hole they have to somehow bridge the gap on.
Yeah, I think it was interesting, as Danielle said earlier, Trump is not on the ballot. Are his values on the ballot? I don't know if we're seeing that in a lot of Republicans, this hard line issues with immigration or, healthcare and all of these things. So it's going to be interesting to see how this new wave of Republicans handle after Trump.
Well, Emma, thank you so much for joining us. We'll keep a close eye on that as the coming days come. After the break, former Speaker of the House and longtime Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi says she's calling it quits next year. Stay with us.
Look at you. You're at the top of your game. You're unstoppable. Nothing can throw you off track. Wait, is that your car? Uh-oh. Yeah, I saw that coming. That will throw you off track. You're looking at around 10 grand in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. Let's try this again. Smart move. Because buzz driving is drunk driving.
Welcome back to Talking Points. The nearly 40-year-old era on Capitol Hill comes to a close next year as Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi announces she will not run for re-election. Pelosi has long been a staple of the Democratic Party and the House of Representatives.
Pelosi currently represents California's 12th congressional district, which most notably includes San Francisco. During her tenure, she was the Democratic leader in the House for 20 years, during which she became the first woman elected to the Speaker of the House. Pelosi is now 85 years old, making her one of the oldest active members of Congress.
Definitely interesting to see how usually politicians move to the nonprofit or corporate sector after, but she's had such a long tenure in government that I don't know if that's a possibility at this point. But
maybe calling it quits.
Time will tell. That's all the time we have for you in this episode of Talking Points. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at CitrusTV News and like us on Facebook. I'm Ben Bascuk.
And I'm Alex Burstein. Have a great night, Syracuse.